So the NASCAR Silly season started early with a surprise driver move. A team may be folding, a big team may be folding at the end of the year. It's challenging to run an iRacing league, especially one that's drastically different from your other one. We're going to get into that. And oh yeah, Eric, you're going to the Speedway this weekend.
Yeah, gonna check out some practice and qualifying on Friday and then going back the next day for the Grand Prix.
That's
This
right.
year it's the Sonsio Grand Prix.
Sonsio. That's right. We'll get into that here in a second. This is FR Racing's Garage Talk. I'm DJ Flock.
I'm Eric Richardson.
And yeah, we'll talk about that right away. So it's the Sonsio Grand Prix. I don't even know what Sonsio is. I think we've had this discussion before.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Sonsio.
I think it's like
Sonsio
insurance or something, isn't it?
Vehicle Protection Plans.
Yeah, there you go.
Interesting. I thought, for some reason, I thought it was like it was a company that, provided like food to cafeterias, but that's something
That's
else.
Sodexo.
Sodexo, that's what I'm thinking of. Sodexo, Sonsio, it sounds close enough.
I'm just waiting for the tears all open.
So you've got that coming up this weekend.
Yep.
Yeah, and then after that, we got to practice on Friday, qualification, race on Saturday, and then time to go to the Oval for the next couple of weeks, and where I really get my money on my Peacock membership.
Yeah, I wish I was gonna be down here a few days longer. I really want to go to opening day, but I'll be back up in Michigan at that point.
Is what it is. I mean, at least you get to go. I haven't told you the last Indy 500 I went to was the race I went to with you in 2008. So I'm way overdue for a 500.
I think this will be number 5 actually since the 100th.
I don't think I've been to even 5, period.
I think this is gonna be my 7th 500, 7th or 8th. I can't remember if I went to 2 or 3 beforehand. I think
I just,
7.
when I was younger, I wanted to go because my parents had season tickets up until the split. And it would be like my grandparents would come out, they'd go to the race. One of my parents would go, usually my mom. Sometimes my dad would go in her place for whatever reason, and the neighbor across the street who went with them. And yeah, then the split happened, and yeah, it's all documented here. Good read, but yeah, they wouldn't take me. They're like, yeah, it's too much walking. We have to walk a mile. And like, I don't care. I want to go. But I up until I think I was in 6th grade, first 500 I went to. The rain
I
out
don't
year.
remember my first one.
The rain out year was my first 500. The 2-day rain out was my first one.
I wish I'd gone on Tuesday.
We've talked about that enough.
Yes, we have.
Oh man. So big news out of the NASCAR world that we were surprised with, that Michael McDowell announced that he is leaving Front Row Motorsports at the end of the year, which has caught most people off guard. And then about 20 minutes later, the rumors that he was going over to Spire started to pop up. And about an hour later, it was confirmed that he was going to Spire next year. So he's been driving Fords for a long time. He won the Daytona 500. He won the Indy race a couple of years ago. He was there a long time, put in a lot of effort with that team, and really cemented them. Like, he was a big part of legitimizing that team.
Yeah, I've seen some stuff too about possibly Front Row and Stewart-Haas combining or joining.
Yeah, that was the other big news, is that Stewart-Haas may be closing their door. Talked about selling some charters, talked about maybe closing their door for good.
I heard too that they could possibly sell one of the charters to Trackhouse.
and Gene Haas has had some what was it? I mean, we know Haas and his F1 team it's pretty well documented about the dysfunction there. They haven't really been much of a threat. And Tony Stewart's had it up to here with NASCAR, and all of a sudden is in love with drag racing. That
He's actually doing pretty good drag racing.
he really is. So it's kind of, I don't know how much, and there was the talk, was Harvick like carrying that organization? You could argue yes, he was. So he retires. Chase Briscoe is their senior driver. We have Josh Berry, Noah Gragson, who's had a good year so far. He's bounced
Yeah, he's
back.
actually been driving pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, his year at Legacy was pretty forgettable, and then he had his social media controversy that got him suspended and booted from there. But he's had a nice bounce back so far. But then you have Ryan Preece, Josh Berry, as I think I mentioned already. Not exactly a team that strikes fear in the heart.
No, and it's kind of hard too this year when you have two teams that are absolutely dominating the series.
Ford can't buy a win. Here's a trivia question for you. What was Stewart-Haas's last Cup Series win?
Jeez, I don't even know. Is it 2020?
No, it wasn't that far back. And a bonus point if you could tell me which driver.
Oh, I don't know. Tell me.
Hang on a second. I need to fact check myself.
Ask a question, then got fact check yourself.
Yeah,
What is
I
this?
thought I knew the answer, and then I'm not so sure.
That's what this show's about, though.
Yeah. Well,
Shenanigans.
you know what? We're gonna do it right. The last win was Harvick at Richmond in 2022.
I was gonna say Harvick, but I
Yeah,
didn't know what
I
track.
mean, so before that, they had one other win in 2022, which was Chase Briscoe at Phoenix in March.
Kind of
That's why I wanted to
surprised me
fact
on
check
that one.
that. That was his only win.
Yep.
Yeah. So, they haven't exactly been the dominant competing for a championship team that they have been previously. So guessing they probably won't be around. And the cost is absurd. You've had Jeff Gordon being very, very public about the charter system, and Henrik, despite all the winning and all the sponsors, that they're bleeding money. It's not a sustainable system. You've had Junior Motorsports that say, I'm, Dale Jr.'s like, why would I want to go to Cup? Why would I pay that much for a charter? No.
Well, and it's been fairly quiet with the owners in NASCAR on the direction things are going to move. This whole charter thing may go away.
Yeah, I think they want it to go away.
One, you've seen more this year, and maybe they're making a bigger deal about it on the broadcast. The cars that are racing without the charter. That there is a way to get into a race, but it's much different.
Yep. Yeah, and I'm not even sure I fully understand all the rules behind that, but like SVG, he's had a couple of runs. He's not been on a chartered ride, I believe.
Well, that Project 91 is not chartered.
Right. And then they've had a couple of random, the couple Daytona cars that weren't chartered. I'm not sure.
Cloud doesn't have a charter.
Not anymore. He made a pretty penny selling his.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, I don't know.
I believe I read too, IndyCar is looking at some sort of charter system.
Yeah,
like, no, what are you doing?
Owners are like, So you got that. And then IndyCar, you've got the concern that Honda's going to leave the sport. I think Marshall Pruitt said about, look at, 18 months from now, Honda will probably be gone. I mean, do you just have one car or one engine manufacturer, or do you go try to chase down a second one?
I think there's a market if somebody wants to jump in it. Bring back G-Force.
G-force.
I think you need a little bit of
Remember those cars in
something.
those terrible cars post split, and you had the Oldsmobile Aurora and like the Infinity
Yep.
engine, the Oldsmobile. Because when I think of IndyCar, I think of Oldsmobile.
If Honda does go, I think it kind of leads itself to maybe a couple options. This will be my hot take for the day. I don't, you don't want just one manufacturer
No,
because there's going to be too much parity, and I'm not a big fan of that. I think one of two things: find another manufacturer. Uh, Even if you only have one, you just have the Chevy engine, get two chassis manufacturers. That way, there's some options out there. Or come up with some sort of Formula One model. Let the cars get a little bit more technical.
then you're gonna have a repeat of Penske in '94 with the that secret engine they built and then just ran over the field.
Well, I think you keep the engine the same. Everybody, Fonda's out, everybody gets a Chevy engine, but little tweaks within the car. If you look at a Formula One cars on the grid, quick glance, they all look the same, but you start looking at them, there's some big differences.
Who do you think would be a viable second manufacturer for an engine?
Um, Maybe look at GM.
I mean, you already have Chevy. You know, do you want to like having a? Do you go to
You
Chrysler? Do you go talk to them and bring Dodge or whatever into the? I mean, I don't think Dodge. I don't think Chrysler's ever been involved with IndyCar, at least that I recall.
The only reason I would maybe say like with Cadillac, if they're working on stuff for Formula One, it's not a massive changeover. You're not like
Is it too
going,
similar though?
then that's the fun part. You develop something for the Indy cars that it's not going to be a one-to-one transfer, but maybe you learn something for your Formula One.
So, because looking back at engine manufacturers, it's been Chevy Honda for a long time.
Yes.
I mean, was there anyone else? We mentioned Oldsmobile and Infinity. Was there anyone else? I mean, Oldsmobile is GM.
Without really looking back on it, we may be dating ourselves to where we were too young and not fully paying attention to that stuff. As you've had what Cosworth in there before.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Um, Man, I can't name others.
Yeah, Toyota did have a brief involvement.
I feel like Ford has maybe been in there at some point.
You have to assume they were.
Maybe
Yeah,
Ford comes back.
yeah. Toyota was in there until 2005, and Toyota left because they decided they were going to focus their efforts on building their NASCAR program. Um, Talk
Yeah,
about
that
Cosworth.
sounds familiar now.
Yeah, Nissan badge is Infinity. Do you go back to Nissan?
They're
Yeah,
involved in
Ford.
racing
Yeah,
still.
yeah, because it was Ford Cosworth
Yeah.
prior to the split. That's right. It's like it's coming back now.
And we're talking mid 90s right now. So,
Yeah, we're back into the mid '90s.
I mean, we were 10 years old at that point. We're not paying attention to engine manufacturers. We were just watching cars go fast.
That's right. I think those '97, those terrible '97 cars are kind of like the first time I really like actually paid attention to chassis and engines. And. 'Cause, 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 'c because like I don't think Ford is a viable option because Ford's they're focused on NASCAR. That's never going to change. They're focused on bringing their Mustang program into
Yep, they're working to develop
IMSA
that.
and all that, and the GT and Ford Performance. They're getting involved in maybe getting involved with Red Bull in Formula One. I think they've got their plate pretty full, so I don't think Ford's a viable option. Um, yeah, do you go to Nissan? Do you go to Chrysler? Do you call Kia Hyundai? Could you imagine that?
Man, if
The
you
in
take out Ford, you already have Chevy. Part of me still thinks you stay stateside.
I mean it's they keep hearing rumors of like flirting with Chrysler to try to get them back into NASCAR. But does Chrysler even make a car anymore? Would be like a Fiat.
Maybe. Because it is what Fiat Chrysler.
Or what's it called? Moventus now or something like that?
I think Fiat owns Jeep now. Put a Jeep out there.
Not Moventus. What the heck is the name? Stellantis, not Moventus. Jeez, I'm just off, way off here. Stellantis. I didn't even know, like, apparently Fiat Chrysler became Stellantis back in January of 2021. I had no idea until they went on the UAW went on strike. Hey, Alfa Romeo, they're getting out of Formula One. Alfa Romeo and
So I did see something. September 6th, I believe is the date. Indianapolis Motor Speedway is hosting a very interesting race.
is that the autonomous racing?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Did
they've
you see
done that.
highlights of the first one?
I did not actually. I heard about it. I didn't watch it.
I
Because
saw some clips of it. One car just like stopped driving, then the another one just didn't want to pass, and
it's
the
like
lead car had no idea what it was doing, and they're just cruising along.
it's like iRacing.
And I think it was because the one like died on track, there was a like 2 hour delay.
It's just like autonomous racing. Like, okay, there's a place for that, but God, no! Like, do not ever like turn the Indy 500 into autonomous racing. Like, the human element is what makes that great. Like, go away with your autonomous racing. Go drive your cars that look like surfboards and drive in the Mojave Desert with a giant solar panel on your roof.
And
Keep it
if you're
away.
gonna
Keep
do
it away from
that,
my track.
if you're gonna do that, let's put the cars going 300 and let's do a little demolition derby. Because we don't have to worry about driver
Then you're really,
safety.
yeah, I was about to say, then you're gonna have to really worry about parts flying into the stands.
Yeah, just put them in the upper deck and put additional plastic shields and
Oh man, yeah, no, not for me.
no, I'll pass.
Like racing, like the car is only part of the racing. The driver is what makes the racing the racing. I mean, you could
Yeah,
argue
the
that
driver makes it.
eh, you could argue that okay, Formula One is more about playing with your steering wheel than actually driving, and okay, so some people make that argument. Um, but there's a lot of grassroots kart, late model stock, dirt racing. And like, no, you get that autonomous crap away from me.
Nope. As kind of going back to Indy, we're gonna have some noticeable people missing for the two Indianapolis races this month.
First name comes to mind is Tony Kanaan, who's
I was thinking more of Penske people.
oh yeah, yeah,
They levied down some additional
pretty
penalties.
pretty harsh penalties. But Tim Cindric can still do his day-to-day function outside of IndyCar.
I I still feel like we're missing some pieces to the story.
Yeah, I think there's more to it.
There's a lot of people though that are still fairly upset that drivers aren't being penalized. I'm seeing it more specifically towards Joseph Newgarden
Mm,
because you're talking about a champion that didn't know the rules.
yeah. I, I just, it's
And a
just
lot of
something
people
doesn't
are
smell
very
right.
yeah, a lot of people are very confused on that. How are
That's
you at
just,
that level and you don't know what's going on?
to talk
Like,
about the smell test, that doesn't pass the smell test.
I like Newgarden as a driver.
I do. Yeah, I agree.
I actually like Will Power and McLaughlin, and I've been open. I do not like Team Penske, but I do like the drivers. They've had some great drivers over the years.
There was a great meme joke that I saw the other day that said the driver had a chance to cheat and use push to pass to gain an advantage, and they didn't. That takes some real willpower. I'm sure that's not the first time in his life he's had a pun joke about his name. But
No,
I still laughed anyway, even though it was a pretty obvious punchline that was coming.
I think they just need to get out and race and continue successes, and I think it'll start to fade. There may be some question marks that linger, but
I,
if
you
they
know,
start to drop back after all this,
that's gonna
then
be yeah. Well, I mean, even they had a good day in
yeah, they
uh
dominated Barber.
Barber, yeah. So I mean, I don't think that's gonna happen. Like it's not like, oh, we got this guy doing steroids. Up, they don't get they hit 5 home runs the rest of their career when they're hitting 50 a year before that.
Yeah, a little different there.
And it'll be interesting to see this month and how much of a cloud that brings over the speedway.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Do you think, you've got this whole Penske owning the series and the speedway, then you got his drivers and team cheating. Do you think that any I mean, the punishment was pretty harsh. It was very harsh. Do you think the punishment was made worse because of Roger Penske's relationship and him not wanting to, appear biased because it's his team?
Um, I, I think there's a weird spot in maybe clarification. IndyCar handed down the penalties to the drivers and the teams, taking away the victory for Newgarden, the disqualification with him and
Dropping down the
McLaughlin,
points.
um, the point and fines for everybody, or the point penalty for Power. But I'd like to know, is it more Team Penske that handed down these suspensions, or was it IndyCar in addition to what they've already done? I think there's a lot of overlap that maybe could be clarified.
Yeah, I agree. It's just, I mean, it's a weird thing that you have. And honestly, I don't know. Roger Penske's what, 86 or something like that. He's not young.
No.
Uh, he's owns the speedway. He's the caretaker of the series, and honestly, a big reason why reunification happened. I mean, bankruptcy of Champ Car drove that, but Raj was always there trying to reunify the series. He was a double agent. He left because he felt he needed to, but he was always trying to work it back. And yeah, the man's loyal to Indianapolis, to the IndyCar series. It's one thing to own a series in a racetrack and also run a team. So it's like, honestly, how much of the day to day does Roger Penske get involved with in his race teams, IndyCar or NASCAR or IMSA?
Well, and that's where Tim Cindric is so big and instrumental on the racing team side of things, and where he took a big part of the blame and responsibility for what happened. Maybe almost fun to see
Roger
because of the
suspend himself.
have kind of like a similar thing to like the NHL. There's so much overlap there with Penske with the ownership of track and series and team. Where NHL you have Bettman, but then you also have the Department of Player Safety that hands out
Yep.
game suspensions. So having like a race committee that determines penalties for infractions. That way it's not appearing to
Yeah, any
come from the
bias
top,
bias or favoritism or anything like that. Yep.
where it's independent of owner has no say in what the committee determines.
But then the complete opposite is you go to NASCAR and Big Bill France, what he said went. Indy, what USAC and Indy, what Tony Holman said went. Is the iron fist. And if he wanted to make up a rule on the fly, he did.
As long as there's consistency across the board.
Yep.
If you want to go Iron Fist, that's fine. If you want a committee, go for it. Just be consistent.
Right. Yep.
I do like the one rule change they made on the fly with the pit road coming up this month.
Yes, that was a good change. I agree.
2 years in a row, we're probably lucky something didn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah, you're tempting fate here.
And when you refer to Indianapolis and tempting fate, Indianapolis is going to win.
Yeah. Yes.
Unfortunately, it has proven itself time and time again.
I mean, we had a close call last year with that tire breaking off. You've had numerous driver deaths over the years. It's yeah. I mean, it's just safety's got to be key. You can't kill your drivers. You can't kill your team. Your pit crews. You can't kill your fans. Nobody wants to go to the racetrack and die, or have their family member or their friend die next to them at the because of something like that. So it's a good move.
Fantastic rule change.
On that note, speaking of managing leagues, so we alluded to this at the beginning. So we Indy Racing World Series, we took off. It grew fast this year.
Went from what, 5 to like 20.
5 to 6 to 20 at its peak. There's obviously the rules are a little bit different. The driving is different. The driving styles are different. There's a lot of overlap of drivers between the two series on Tuesday and Wednesday nights, but it's a different league and it has to be managed differently. Cautions are a big thing. With Wednesday Night Dash, it's about fast pace and keeping people on the track. So, we want people to drive as much as they can. It's like, okay, if you have to take that second faster pair and you're 2 laps down, you're gonna at least run your race at least, minus your pit stop time and maybe a tow here and there. But the Indy race, it's a different strategy that was taken, and we've got cautions, we've got one faster pair. And ultimately, that rule knocked me out at the Texas race this week. Went over some marbles, and you'll see on the crash of the week on Monday, I have my wheel cranked all the way to the left, and I'm still sliding up the track. And I just went, crap. I'm completely off the throttle. I'm trying to brake. I hit the marbles and I slid. And I was like, crap. I already used my fast repair when I plowed into the back of Derek Booker earlier in the race. It's tough. We had some situations yesterday where there were some wrecks where cautions weren't thrown.
Seems like the last 2 weeks we should have had some more caution flags, but iRacing didn't throw it.
Yeah, and I
sometimes the system throws it very quickly, and other times it's like, you have a car on track. Where's this caution at?
The one that I am scratching my head on is, I was in the back. I saw this. Austin Johnston slid up the track. it's just, one of those Texas crashes. And he got down below the line, but there's like debris on the track.
Yeah, usually
For
that would throw.
that should have thrown a caution. That debris, I saw the crash happen. I got through cleanly. I came around for my next lap about 25 seconds later, and the debris still on the track. I'm like, why was a caution not thrown here?
Yeah, I did see that.
And I don't get that. So that's something for iRacing support, because one, well, I have actually discovered some bugs that I've reported to iRacing, and that's how people want to complain like, oh, this is buggy, this is crap, and it's like, well, okay, so bugs happen. If you've never written software before, I've written software. I have experience a lot of experience as a software engineer. There's no such thing as perfect software. There's
No, that's why you have
sufficient. There's good software and there's
hot
bad
fixes
software.
all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
You find a bug and they fix it and
It's
push it.
it's whack-a-mole. Like, you test it, you put it in your simulators, you put it on your what they call your sandbox. You test it out and you're like, okay, this looks pretty solid. You push it, and then some variable that you don't take into account happens. Maybe it's because when you're testing in the sandbox, you're right there. You don't take into account for latency because you got a guy in Texas racing with somebody in Australia, halfway around the world, and they're 3 inches apart. You hear the classic, ooh, netcode. It's like, yeah, that's pretty difficult. Like, I think they do a great job simulating that, but and that it's not perfect. But
No, and it's so hard to make it.
yeah, I think they do a great job. It's a very difficult system, and they, I number one thing I've learned about iRacing support is they are very open to, hey, if you think you found a bug, we want to know about it. Send us the replay. Tell us what happened. And I've actually single-handed, like myself, have discovered like 3 or 4 bugs in a couple of years of doing this, and I've reported to them. One thing I found a bug with their, they switched to the anti-cheat system and they ended up temporarily rolling back, and then they rolled it out again. I was one of the, I mean, I'm sure I wasn't the only one, but I found one of the bugs and reported it to them. And the way to make software better is for your users to give appropriate feedback. And by giving them appropriate feedback, it gives the developers something to aim for. They get it fixed. It makes it a better product. It's like, I don't work for them. They're not paying me. But it's like, well, you know what? If that was the case, why does Yelp have reviews? Why does Google have reviews? Like, if that wasn't a big deal, that's, you're providing feedback. You don't work for them, but you went and felt the need to write a 5-star review about how great of service you had, or a 1-star review because the place was terrible. There was a worm in your food, 1 star. Like, that, like, you do it all the time. You just don't notice it. And from a software perspective, that feedback you give them, the more feedback you give them, the better the product is going to be for everybody else.
Yep. So they can go back in and look at it and figure
Push
out
it,
what caused it.
So, that being said, like, there's some questionable things that happened in the Texas race where it's like, why wasn't that a caution?
I know sometimes with the cautions, if the car like hits and spins, but it gets below the track.
If it's outside of the racing line, I believe is the term.
Yep.
I was looking for the language, but I couldn't find it. It's not in the sporting code.
Yeah, it's if it gets out of that racing line, or like you spin, but you're able to like keep moving, it won't throw.
If you have multiple cars involved with cars turning backwards on the track, that usually triggers the flag. But I honestly, I think Austin's he was down below and it didn't trigger it. So from our standpoint, we're obviously, we had some discussions with some of the drivers yesterday of like, why didn't that happen? Well, I don't know. I don't work for iRacing. But I mean, there's things we can do internally as race organizers to
Yeah, and
improve
we've
on
already
that.
been talking about ways that we can improve.
Yeah.
We don't race again for 2 weeks now. what we can do for that season finale race and what we can do moving forward. Um, Interesting question was kind of posed to us also. If we're running the race actively driving, but we're still race admin, we can throw the cautions.
Yeah, for sure. The
Uh,
only yeah, not go sorry, go ahead.
the big question I have, and I'm kind of running this league. You're helping me. Winston and Ash is yours. I help you.
Yep.
My big concern and question mark would be if we hear over radio, is I didn't even see that one. You just happen to be right
I
behind
did,
it.
yeah.
If we get a call over the radio for a caution, how do we judge if it should have been, or is it just then a free game of somebody pops the wall out of turn
Yeah.
two and bends their axle and they call caution?
Because it's like, okay,
Then
they
does
try
it
to
get to
limp
be
around.
too much? And does it become a gamesmanship of, well, I need to catch up, so I'm about to get lapped. I'm gonna drive into the wall, get the caution, then I can pit, get fixed, and be back in this thing.
Or the other thing too is
I don't
perceived
think our
bias.
drivers would do that,
No,
but
I don't. I no, I don't think our present crew would do something like that. But
yeah, I don't
it,
think so either. I think
it
everybody's very high integrity that we're racing with and would be fair.
perceived bias is the other problem too, where I get in a wreck and I go on the radio and say, "Yeah, Eric, I think we should throw a caution." It's not, and then I take a fast repair. I'm back on the lead lap. I come back and win the race. Now all of a sudden, somebody's going to be like, "You only won the race because you're the race admin. You triggered the caution." Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to avoid. And obviously, the easy answer is implement a independent race control. Now we're trying to keep this league affordable for everybody, and do we want to have a race controller? Like, are you willing to pay extra to have a race controller? And I don't know. The answer to that will be yes. We know
Yeah,
what some leagues charge for a race controller.
I don't know the right answer, and we've done it before where we send
Also,
out for a feedback and we appreciate feedback.
it's also a judgment call too with a race controller. It's iRacing is going to make their best guess. They said, nah, no caution. And then you have a race control. Like, yeah, I agree. And then you got the driver upset. Like, why wasn't that a caution? Well, I didn't think it was.
And no, definitely valid things. And I want to hear from our drivers too, is I want to make this fun where it's summer, Winston and Dash. We keep people on the track.
We also want to make people like not make ill-advised moves.
We
Mistake.
saw what happened at Kentucky with unlimited fast repairs.
Yeah. The thing
We
is,
don't want to run under caution
and
for
and
a race either.
I said to one of the drivers I talked to yesterday, I said the number one thing is you put in unlimited fast repairs, you're going to be more aggressive, and you're going to be like, yeah, I could squeeze through that tiny opening between these two cars, and then you take out both drivers, you survive it, that you can limp around and take your fast repair. You got the caution to slow you down, to keep you on the lead lap. But those other two drivers had to take a tow. They lose 2 laps in the process of taking the tow, and their night's ruined because you made an ill-advised move. Because you thought to yourself, even if I cause a wreck, if I can limp back around, whatever. And I took two
We would
opponents
look
out in the
at like
process.
2 fast repairs because they are a little bit longer races and it's still a
Yeah,
developing league, not a
I made that
high
argument about
end.
2 earlier in the year, and we're like, maybe we can change it. We'll leave it at 1 for now. Honestly, I think from my standpoint, the longer races need two fast repairs, especially with the level of skill this league is. I'm not saying we're bad, but we're not pros either.
No, we are definitely not a bad league. We have some very solid drivers
Yes, we
from
do.
top to bottom, but we are not at that elite level yet. But it is fun.
So we're gonna make some changes. We're Wednesday Night Dash this season. We tweaked the weather format to try to make it a little more accurate, because we were just going off of the iRacing default, and you'd have like 130-degree track temperatures, and like, that's not realistic. That's not fun. And I think it's helped. I think that was weird with the first race at Pocono where we're driving in like borderline fog. That was
Oh, and we
the
did the weather for our next gen race at Dover, and we're practicing in heavy fog, and then we get to race day and it's like
yeah,
partly cloudy, then the sun comes out. Like,
yeah, it's
what is
completely, yeah.
this?
It's like, oh, but then again, it also adds that dynamic that real drivers do, because yeah, just because it's completely overcast now doesn't mean it's going to be in half an hour. And you look at Dover this year, the real life race, it was complete overcast and 68 degrees for the Xfinity race. It was 20 degrees warmer and completely clear and sunny the next day, like for the Cup
Yeah.
race. So um, it adds a fun dynamic for sure.
Yeah, and we're still learning. The both leagues kind of took off this season, and in our current seasons here, we'll be making adjustments. So good, bad, indifferent. Thank you to our drivers that
Yeah, of
share their feedback.
course.
We
That's
definitely appreciate it. And we will not get upset with you if you do.
no, I think good civil constructive criticism is fine. I mean, you want to tell me I'm stupid? I don't care. I mean, I know I'm stupid. My wife says I'm stupid on a daily basis, or I say something stupid on a daily basis. You know what? I know that.
And I definitely appreciate it. And I'm very thankful that we have drivers willing to speak up and let us know.
Yeah, because ultimately we want to make this fun for everybody. The reason people avoid, like me, I tend to avoid the open official races because a lot of them are kind of toxic.
Hmm.
It's toxic environment. You got people in there that think they're God's gift to simulated racing. And it's like, really, if you're that good, I would be, I'd be seeing you driving in at least the truck series on Friday night, but we don't. Um,
It's fun. After races, people chat and
yeah, you have more
talk about what they're
control. That
doing. And
you do have that occasional toxic person that finds their way in. You can boot them out.
mhm. And it's fun too, just on the Indy season, watching where the drivers were at the beginning of the season to where they are now. Everybody has gotten better.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And that's what we want to see too.
So real quick before we wrap here, we're coming up on the third anniversary of FR Racing. Can you believe that we're month-ish away from 3 years?
That's wild.
Three. Day one, when we decided we were going to do this, we were kind of like, what are we going to do with this? Like, what's our end goal? And we're like, well, I mean, the end goal is like, we want to own a real car and be in the Indy 500. And it's like, okay, great. It's like that, that comic where, have an idea, question mark, profit. Yeah. That was what we were day one. When we said, we're gonna get started with this, we didn't know what we're gonna do. We're gonna play some video game racing like we did when we were kids. It evolved into the streaming. It evolved into this show. It evolved into our Discord community that is well over 100 people now, which is wild. We've done a charity race and raised $1,450 this year for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. We have 3 leagues running. Met some amazing people, both online. Some of them we've met in real life too, which is really cool. And yeah, there's a lot of people. It's like these people are friends now. It's like I've never met these people. Some of these people I will probably never meet them in person, but we hang out once a week for a couple hours, and we drive, and we chat, and it's incredible, like what we've come in just under 3 years so far.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
But anyway, I'm not gonna we're gonna unveil the surprise of what the giveaway is gonna be, but it's really cool. I'm really excited about it, and I've been keeping an eye out for something like this. I find this. I text Eric. I'm like, what do you think? This is the giveaway. And I'm like, if you're good with it, I am buying it. And
Man, I
I
want to
bought
put
it.
in the try to win.
There was
It's pretty cool.
it is very cool. I was just, or trying to figure out like, where did this come from? And I messaged the guy who was selling it, and he got right back to me, and I'm like, wow, that's not what I was expecting, but we should have it here. Let's see if it's shipped yet. And maybe we'll do a live stream where I unbox it and show everybody on a live stream. Let's see here. Let's check my account. Nope, hasn't shipped yet. I mean, it is coming priority mail, so once it does get out the door, it will be here in a couple of days. So look around May 18th. We might have a surprise live stream going where I sit at my desk and open the box, and we'll show you what we're going to be giving away to somebody. So just generally, just like last year, we gave away the autographed Ricky Stenhouse 124 scale diecast. The rules will be very similar. We'll have a contest page up. You register with your email address and your name. Got to live in the continental United States because I'm not shipping this thing overseas or to Hawaii or Alaska. Sorry, guys. And when you enter, you can get bonus entries by following us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Twitch. You get bonus and if you already follow us on those channels, that's great because you just click the button and it'll route you and like, yeah, you follow them and you get the entry anyway. So I think you can get about 10 entries into this contest. We had, I forget what the number was, but we had a few hundred entries last year for it. So we're gonna
That's a
try
good
to,
number.
yeah, we're gonna try to boost that up. In some of the names we saw on the entries list, we recognized. Some of them we didn't. The guy who ultimately won, I didn't know that person. But when I emailed them and said, "Hey, you won," they're like, "Oh, so cool!" So that was fun to send an email and say, "Hey, you won. Where do you want it?"
Yeah, that's always cool.
So keep an eye out for that. We will be. I'm honestly like, part of me wants to keep it, but I can't.
I don't even know where I'd put it.
Yeah, I know. That's kind of the awkward part of it, but
My wife would probably be like, "What are you doing with this?" Like, it's cool.
but I mean, if you look behind me, you can see my walls are pretty heavily decorated. That now I'm decorating the doors behind me, and my wife's like, "Would you stop putting things on the wall? Like this isn't a freaking sports bar."
Once I can finally get set up somewhere, hopefully I'll have a fun little backdrop with all my stuff.
The fun thing though is the this Bud Ice sign up.
That one's great.
I love the Bud Ice commercials from the 90s. If you haven't seen them or you're too young to remember or forgot about them, go look up the Bud Ice Penguin commercials. So when I saw that on eBay a few years ago and I bought it, and I saw the dimensions of it, but I wasn't thinking, and I was expecting it to be like, oh yay, like normal bar sign. And then the package shows up at the door and I'm like, oh my
Oops.
God, this thing's like 2 feet tall. But anyway, so keep an eye out for that. Really, really excited about this contest. As soon as we unveil it, we will open the entry and post the link, and you have until our. So what day did I tell? So what we do is for our quote anniversary, we have the day that we agreed and submitted the paperwork to incorporate FR Racing LLC, which is like June 28th. But we officially were not incorporated until July 8th. But I think because of that formation, that agreement day, I think we called June 28th the official birthday, so to speak. So we will keep the entry open from the day we unveil it to June 28th. get your entries in, and we'll announce it in early couple days, day or two later. We'll announce the winner.
And then coming up this weekend, we talked about it. We have the Indy Grand Prix at Indy. And then NASCAR is going to the Lady in Black.
Lady in Black, Darlington.
Now,
Darlington.
do you know why it's an egg-shaped oval?
Because the guy who designed it was drinking a bunch of moonshine.
There's a house right by the track and he didn't want to sell, so they shaped it around.
No kidding. The house can still be there, is it?
I believe it is, actually.
Let's look at the trusty Google Maps and see. Yeah, if he didn't sell the house, there's a little pond back there, and there is a neighborhood.
Yeah, the pond plays a factor in the track as well.
Yeah. I did not know that. Could you imagine that? There's this road, Sunset Drive, that backs to the pond, and then you got the track. And I mean, these are some decent sized houses too on this block. Can you imagine having that in your backyard? I mean, I guess it's no different than living off of Georgetown Road in Speedway.
And speaking of South Carolina, up the road in North Carolina, Rockingham is continuing some renovations.
They want back on the schedule. Oh, and we didn't even talk about the rumor that Richmond could lose one of their dates. Did you hear where the replacement for the Richmond date will be?
I did, but I don't recall.
The rumor is the Mexico City street race.
That is right.
It's like, okay, like street races are a fun gimmick, but like let's not this isn't Formula One. We don't have to go and race on every street in America or in the world.
No,
I mean, I get like the Mexico that audience, you have NASCAR Mexico. I mean, that strategically makes sense. But like, when you run the race on the track that Formula One uses, just does it
let's
have
go
to be in
there.
Mexico City? Can Kyle Busch even run the race in Mexico City?
That was the question. He's like, "Can I go?"
I don't know if he can. Honestly, I don't know if he can go into Mexico right now without getting arrested.
The rumor mill is going to be picking up significantly here over the course of summer. Question marks as to what Adrian Newey's doing with Formula One.
I mean, we already have
Um,
McDowell leaving, Stewart-Haas, as we talked about.
I see the rumor mill picking up that Max is in talks or at least talking with Mercedes. And what would be a potential departure from Red Bull.
Do you think Max and Newey are a package deal?
I'm here Newey tied to Ferrari.
Yeah.
Um, I keep seeing stuff going back and forth with Carlos Sainz and Audi.
Yuki
It's gonna,
Tsunoda potentially going to Aston Martin.
and then you have the question marks around the kick drivers if they're gonna be back next year at all.
Oh, one of them's already for sure out because Hulkenberg's got one of those seats.
But I saw something too that it wasn't necessarily it's a seat, but not necessarily with the kick Sauber. It was with something else. I'm gonna have to go back and find
I
that
saw the
article.
graphic. They had him penciled in under the Kick Sauber team. So I mean that's in preparation for they wanted the German ready for Audi in 26. So that was why that was done. So I mean he's got to probably suck next year.
So
I mean,
there's all sorts of stuff going. Then we didn't touch on it, but K-Mag is 1 point away from getting a suspension.
Yeah, he had a rough weekend.
And question marks too if we see Logan Sargent back in the car in 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's also another. I mean, it wasn't his fault in Miami, but it's like he's just not progressing. Then again, Alex Albon hasn't had a very good year either, and that car has not been very good. I mean, you've got James Voles with a real sophomore slump at Williams this year.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's only 1 point. Alpine has a single point. You can a ninth place finish and you jump them.
Jeez.
Yeah, what's Haas have like 7 points or something like that?
Somehow, miraculously.
Yeah.
Lots of stuff picking up. NASCAR, IndyCar is gonna keep picking up. You got Prima coming in next year.
Maybe Valtteri Bottas goes to IndyCar. That's what I want. I would be all 100% for that.
He'd be a great personality for IndyCar.
He's a great personality for IndyCar. He has a global name recognition, for as much of it being Lewis Hamilton's number 2 for several years. But great personality. Guy can win races. You put him in a decent ride at IndyCar. It'll be interesting to see how he transitions to oval racing. But I
Can you
think
imagine the NASCAR looking guy driving IndyCar? The mullet and
he doesn't.
mustache
He
and
is a NASCAR looking guy.
jean shorts.
Oh man, yeah, he's
Valtteri come to IndyCar.
yeah, yeah. I think he would be great. Daniel Ricciardo. Who knows what his future in Formula One looks like? Although he'd be another guy that I think would be number one. He loves the U.S. I think he would be a great fit. I mean, you could send him to NASCAR. You could put him in IndyCar. And I think he would just his presence alone, regardless of how he performs, his presence alone would make the series better.
Yeah. Keep an eye out on stuff. If we hear about it, we'll be covering it. And Formula One's gonna be wild anyway because pretty much everybody's up on contract this year.
Yeah, silly season. Silly season is starting early.
Yeah, it is.
Have you we are in early May? Have we've already all this shuffle in Formula One. We've had drivers starting to shuffle in NASCAR, teams potentially folding. IndyCar's had all this. Have we had a silly season that before we get to May, like the middle of May, like this crazy for those 3 series?
No, usually this stuff doesn't start till
No.
like August,
Yeah.
September.
Yeah, you hear, thanks for your time, but your career, your contract is up, and
Well, and really it started back all the way with the announcement of Lewis to Ferrari.
that got it going in a hurry. Anyway, FR
Lots
Racing
going on in
Online.
race world.
Yes, indeed. Too much to cover in 1 hour. FRRacingOnline.com at FR Racing We'll see you Saturday for the GT3s at Mount Panorama Circuit, aka Bathurst. So I'll be on the call with Taka for that.
Yeah, I'll probably jump in the booth with you, depending what time I have to leave for the track.
3-man booth, just like NASCAR.
We'll try to make it as awkward as Clinton, Kevin.
Yeah, I thought it was Clinton, Kevin. Ah! It was just someone will have to sit. Yeah, Taka will probably just sit there silent for 10 minutes.
That'll be me. I'll still be half asleep.
Hey, it's 6 a.m. for me, so we're gonna have to get to the coffee early. Thanks for watching. We'll see you. We'll see you probably for our weekend recap show.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in. Take care.